Okay, here's what I've made today. These were meant to be all the same size and shape, but they are not. I don't know. Random bowl. Please excuse the mess. Planter. Ignore all that. And a mysterious monkey bowl that died, and then I made it something, I don't know. And then over here, again, it's very messy, I apologize. Plate and bowl / plate. Yippee! Hello everyone, welcome back to another studio vlog. In this video I am going to show you lots of different clips from the past month or so. I'm editing this a little bit later, so you will soon see some of these things were a little while ago. I started off by glazing my trinket dishes. Now typically I score the design into the leather hard plate or dish or whatever it is that I'm making. After it's had its bisque firing, I then work the glaze into the crevices and then I sponge away the excess before adding the detail colour on top and then the main green colour as well that surrounds all of the design, and then it goes into the kiln to be glaze fired. Now on this day I also had lots of zines that needed to be bound for an upcoming market. I was preparing for a small press day in Leeds and I needed to bind a lot of copies of my zines because I was running quite low. I was watching one of my favourite streamers, Ali, who is a lovely person and friend, and she just kept me company whilst I was trimming and adding the saddle stitch to all of these zines. Some of my most popular ones this year definitely have been the Everything I Forage zine, which is basically my drawings from 2022 I believe it was, and I just recorded absolutely every single species of mushrooms I found in the month of September, and it's a really colourful book, lots of nice illustrations, and the ink itself that I used to make the sort of outline of the mushrooms was made from ink caps, so that was a really fun experience a couple of years ago when I was doing the first illustrations. I always print my zines on recycled sugar paper because I think it has a really nice texture, and of course it is recycled materials. I think it also kind of is relatively flat, so it goes through most printers just fine. You do have to sometimes tweak the settings just a tad because it is slightly thicker than your normal paper, but I found that it works really well and the colours always show up really brightly if you just put it through a normal printer or a normal Canon printer at home, whatever you have. But yeah, definitely sometimes play around with the settings to try and get the brightest outcomes. Here they are, bound and ready to go, and then it was on to the next zine, which was Lulu and Yaku. This was a zine that I made in my second year of uni because we had a brief that was about making a children's book, and I decided for some reason that I was going to make the entire thing. Don't ask me why I did that. And it was based on two kids that were squabbling on the train that I saw, and I knew that I wanted to make it into my own little story. I then moved on to Imperfect Transients, which is quite an old one now. This was my first year of uni, so that must have been 2020, I think it was lockdown. So this one's a bit older, and it was the sort of trip I used to make when I wanted to have some space and clear my head and stuff when it was COVID. So this one's quite special, and it was a patch of woodland that had lots of wildlife, and I picked up lots of leaves and things and scanned them in, and I ended up actually making my own paper, and you see it in some of the backgrounds of the pages. And then I moved on to a couple of copies of the collection of drawings zine. This one is smaller, so I do end up having to trim quite a lot of this. And then I was just counting through my miniature poem books as well to make sure I had enough. And then it was on to the Soul book, which is printed on bright pink paper, and this is a collection of drawings from my time in Seoul when I was visiting my old flatmate, and this one's really special because it kind of documents my time there, the things I saw, the places I went to and things, so it's really special. And this one is fairly popular, not as popular as some of my other ones, but people do tend to really like the style of drawings that I did. I did all of them with a brush pen whilst I was actually in Seoul, and then when I got back I scanned them all in and yeah, made a zine from it. I then moved back to making a few more of the collection mushroom zines. These ones are usually fairly popular no matter what colour I print them on, so I do usually try to provide people with a couple of different colour selections, whether that's kind of like this orange colour or yellow or green. And then it was time to package up some of the birthday cards. This usually involves me just trimming off some tracing paper before adding the sticker and the price tag, and I think it's quite a cost efficient way of doing it, and it doesn't involve excessive packaging. And then I just made sure that I had enough stock of my various different prints and sticker sheets, and I made sure I knew what I was going to be bringing with me. And it turns out I needed a few more of the crustacean prints packaging up. And then the day was here, so I made my way over to the Brew Society, which is in Leeds, to set up my table. And here it is, all of my zines and prints. As I was saying, as it's more of a kind of small press day, I wanted to make sure the zines were the focus. Got myself an iced coffee to start the day, and I had a really fun time. I was just working on a drawing submission I have for the Dead by Daylight cosmetic competition. I try to do it every year, but I missed last year because I was silly. So this is my design for the Huntress. I then went in the rain to get myself a meal deal. It was very sad. It didn't taste great, but it was a really, really good day and I had so much fun. And then the next day, after I'd had a chance to rest, I got myself back on the wheel as I was feeling a little bit out of practice for not doing too many. And at this point in the month, I was kind of all steam ahead for the Harvest Festival at the Hepworth in Wakefield. So I was really conscious that I needed to make lots of mugs and various different sort of vessels and things like that to be able to sell at this market. So here's me just making a few different random bits and bobs for that. I also decided that I wanted to challenge myself to make a teapot as well, so this is me trying to make the spout part of the teapot as well. It does involve a lot of different steps because you have to make each of the different pieces. So you've got to make obviously the main body, you've got to make the handle, the spout, and of course the lid. So that is what I was doing here. I've actually never made a teapot before, so this was quite a challenge for me, and I definitely think I'm going to do it again because I had a good time. It was really fun. I then decided I was going to make a few other random bits and bobs. This ended up being a vase, and as I kind of keep saying in my previous videos, I do need to get better at growing taller and being confident that I can make taller objects, as it is something I'm struggling with. But I was happy with this kind of like mini bud pot kind of thing that I got going on. And then I wanted to make a little plate kind of thing. I did realise that the rim kind of just dropped, so I made them shorter and then just thought that would be alright. I think I used a speckled clay for this stuff. Don't worry, this wasn't all in one day, this is over a few days. I had a block of lino that I'd not printed before. It was from a little while ago when I did a well-being workshop, and it was of some tomatoes, so I decided that I would get this printed in preparation for the Harvest Festival, as obviously it felt very kind of on theme for that, given that we're all sort of like harvesting different produce. And I did grow some tomatoes in my little mini garden this year as well. I wasn't quite happy with the colour that I got on that print, so I decided to add more red back in. I will say, if you are mixing your own colours for lino ink, do start lighter. I put way too much black in the ink and ended up having to add more red back in to compensate because I was not happy with the colour. I think I then added even more. I did, yes. Definitely important to start with your red, add a tiny bit of black next time. I just wanted a kind of like slightly darker red than the one in the sort of like raw tube, I suppose, as I kind of prefer slightly darker muted colours, and this was good. I was happy with that one, and so once I was happy with the colour, it was definitely easy to just go and make lots of different prints after that. Once you do one, you can kind of like get in the process of doing lots of them. I am kind of struggling for space in terms of like drying at the moment in my studio, so I made a makeshift kind of like hanging sort of thing, like a clothes rail. it kind of like goes from one side of the studio to the other, and I found that if I kind of use like clothes pegs, it seems to work relatively well. I was worried about having like an indentation on the top of the paper, but it doesn't seem to have done that just yet. So that's where I've been hanging my prints to dry for now, but I think in the future it might be good to kind of get some sort of like fold out print rack that I could potentially, I don't know, I could maybe like screw it to the wall of the studio, and then it could sort of like fold away when I don't need it and fold out when I do need it. I think that would be kind of cool. I then wanted to try some handmade paper as I was recommended it by a friend, and it worked okay. I wasn't 100% happy with the outcome for this tomato, but I think if I kind of like refine it in future, it might be alright. Here they are, here's all the prints as they were trying. I was super happy with how they turned out. I'm definitely going to do more sort of like vegetable based prints in future. It was then time for me to try again with my screens and coat them again with the emulsion, as I'd not been having a huge amount of success up until this point. It's a relatively simple process of just mixing up your emulsion with the UV sensitive powder. I want to say diazo, I think it's called diazo, and then you can kind of like let that sit for a while before you add it to your trough, and then you can coat your screens. I've gotten pretty good at this over the past sort of year and a half or so. As part of my job 4 days a week is to coat screens, so I've kind of gotten okay at it, and I find that doing 2 pulls is always best because you can get a little bit of the excess off on the second one. So yeah, if anyone needs any tips about screen making, I'd be happy to give them. I've definitely not had the most success with the kind of like DIY UV setup that I've had in the studio, and I would recommend getting a light box sort of thing rather than like a lamp with a bulb, or making your own kind of light box with a cardboard box, and then you can kind of like cut out a hole for the light to go in at the top. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be trying that myself in the near future, because yeah, like I say, I've not had a great amount of success with this so far, but I'm determined that if I keep giving it a go and keep practicing different times, sort of like for the exposure, then I'll eventually get it right and can eventually do some good screen prints. I think the thing that I've been grateful this summer is that I've been able to have a decent amount of time to sort of like refine stuff in the studio, and that's one thing I'm grateful for. I can dedicate more time to experimentation and seeing if things work out, and it's been awesome. But yes, I was feeling quite sort of tired at this point. We did end up going on holiday to London and Brighton for a little bit as well in the summer, which was really nice. But yes, after I'd done the screens, I then decided that I wanted to spend some more time working on my drawing for the Dead by Daylight cosmetic competition, just adding the blood sort of details here. And yeah, here is the finished outcome. As you can see here, I based it on kind of like a drowned concept. I then went home to look after my parents' dog. Thank you for watching this vlog. I will see you soon in the next one.